Today I'm going to show you how to make these two styles of cocoa bombs from start to finish. We will be comparing 3 different cocoa bomb molds. I will also show you what melting candies I like to use and would recommend, tips and tricks to making your cocoa bomb experience better, and how to cover up mistakes. These are the 3 cocoa bomb molds I will be using. This one was purchased from Hobby Lobby for $9.99. It feels really solid. Well built. The mold is very thick, so it should hold up fairly well. This set makes a total of 4 completed cocoa bombs. This mold set was purchased online from Amazon for around $5.99. The mold itself feels really flimsy. It is the exact same size and shape as the other mold, but it is definitely not nearly as firm. It's very flexible and feels kind of flimsy. We're gonna see how these two compare throughout the whole cocoa bomb making experience. The last cocoa bomb mold is my absolute favorite. It is the standard size cocoa bomb mold. I purchased this online from Amazon as well, and it comes in a set of 4, 2 pink and 2 gray molds. Super easy to clean, and compared to the other 2 molds, I'd say it's smack dab in the middle. Not firm, but not overly flimsy either. I'm going to use all 3 today so you can decide which one you think will work best for you based on what you see here. Now that we've checked out all the molds, let's have a look at the candies. For this particular project, I like to use this specific brand of melting candies. Make and Mold is the name of the brand. This is also a Hobby Lobby product. No, they're not sponsoring me. I just happen to like their chocolate and it's affordable. They do have more colors than this. This is just what I happen to have on hand right now. I've only ever used 4 different brands of melting candies. This one, Walmart's generic brand, Wilton's, and Ghirardelli. Out of those 4, Ghirardelli is the most expensive, but in my opinion, it tastes the best and it's great for dipping delicate things like strawberries and cookies. Since Valentine's Day is right around the corner, we're going to use this bag of red melting candies. To get started, we're going to need a microwave safe bowl. If you'd rather melt your chocolate on the stove, there are directions for that on the back of this package. We're going to use about this much chocolate. Let's see how much that is, just so you have an idea of what we're working with. So in total right now, it looks like about close to 6 ounces. And just so we're clear, that's not the whole bag. It's just whatever I poured into the bowl. I'm using a half cup measure here. So you're looking at about a full cup plus a dash extra. So I'd say about 6 ounces of chocolate or 1 cup plus the dash extra. We're gonna microwave this until it's mostly all melted. For me, I believe that took about 1.5 minutes, stirring every 15 seconds or so. There are still some lumps of chocolate that haven't melted. Don't worry, they'll continue to melt. It'll be fine. Since we're making cocoa bombs, we're not gonna thin out this chocolate. The consistency is perfect. We don't need to mess with it. We're gonna start off with my favorite mold. Take a spoon and scoop some of the chocolate into the mold. I like to use a spoon instead of a brush because the curve on the back of the spoon just fits really well inside the mold. With your spoon, use the back to spread your chocolate all the way around the inside of your mold. I don't worry about the bottom. Any excess will naturally settle on the bottom anyway. My main focus is covering the sides and top edges of the mold. Those are the 2 most fragile and breakable areas. Once you have all of your cavities filled with chocolate, I like to set the mold down and shake it like so. This does 2 things. It brings any air bubbles to the surface, which is good. You don't want air bubbles ruining the look of your cocoa bombs. And secondly, it cleans up the inside of your shells, making everything nice and smooth. I then like to look over the inside, and if there are any spots that could use some more chocolate, I like to rotate my mold around using the chocolate that's pooled on the bottom and cover any parts I may have missed or areas that could use a bit more chocolate. You can see here I'm bringing that chocolate to the very edge. There's a small spot I missed earlier. Once you're satisfied with how it all looks, take your mold and place it in the fridge to set. We're gonna leave it in there for about 5-ish minutes or so. Some people like to turn the mold over and dump out the extra chocolate. I don't really do that. I find it just creates more of a mess to clean up later, and besides, I like to keep it all there for a specific purpose, which I'll explain later on. We still have a lot of chocolate left. Let's continue to the next mold. Okay, we're gonna try out the store-bought mold, the firmer, more stable one. Again, we're gonna add in some chocolate. I'm still going with the spoon method. It obviously doesn't fit the interior shape of the mold, but all we really need to do is push that chocolate up to the edges. I will say this, as nice as it is that this set has so many cavities, it's very bulky and it is getting in my way. So I'm gonna cut this puppy just to make it more manageable. It'll be fine, it's just rubber. Much better. This is a lot easier to handle in my opinion. Again, inspect your molds and make sure you've covered all the edges and the sides with chocolate. Those are the 2 most important areas. I can't stress that enough. We're gonna toss this in the fridge alongside the other mold and start on the last set. To keep everything the same, I'm just gonna trim off the last 2 as well. For me, this is just more comfortable. To save you from having to watch this process for a 3rd time, we're just gonna skip to the end and toss these in the fridge. Here's the first set we stuck in the fridge. Before we take these out of the mold, I'd like to go over the edges and sides one last time to help reinforce everything. Since we just pulled this from the fridge, the mold should be nice and cold, which means when you apply your chocolate, it should almost set instantly. Take your spoon and coat the back of it with your melted chocolate. We're going to drag it or wipe it across the edges like so. We're going to give the edges a little more strength so that they don't break or melt when we start handling them later. I am purposefully doing a very light coating for the sake of showing you that yes, you can make cocoa bombs with a very thin layer of chocolate. If you're worried you're going to melt your chocolate, or this is your first time making these, then of course, use more chocolate than I'm using to coat the inside of your bombs. If you're planning on shipping them or giving them as gifts, why not add a bit more chocolate just to ensure they're solid enough to handle that little bit of extra handling. I had to melt some extra chocolate off camera. I didn't have enough for the last set. We're going to reinforce all 3 molds and then pop them back in the fridge for another 5-ish minutes or so to make sure that they are fully set. The time has come to set our chocolate free. I like to hold my fingers to the center of the inside of the cocoa bomb, as this is the thickest part of the bomb and therefore has the most strength. With my other hand on the outside, I gently peel back the mold with my thumb and index finger, while pushing on the center with my other fingers to help release the chocolate into my other waiting hand. You don't want to hold on to the edges and risk breaking or melting the chocolate trying to release it. Let's do that again. We're just going to hold our fingers on the inside and pull back the mold with our thumb and index finger while our other fingers push that chocolate out into our hand. As you can see here, we have some extra chocolate on the edges. We'll clean that up later. Let's get the hearts out. We're going to start with the store-bought mold. The firmer, more stable mold. Listen to the sound of the chocolate being released from the mold. I was trying to be so careful with my chocolate as I was removing it. In my honest opinion, it was kind of hard to remove from the mold. It didn't look like I was struggling, but the rubber was really stiff and my chocolate was pretty thin. I was almost certain my heart was about to be destroyed. And as you can see here, this second one definitely did break right down the center, which is kind of funny because that should have been the most stable part of the whole heart. If your chocolate does happen to break, it's okay. The neat thing about these melting candies is that you can take your broken pieces and remelt them and try again, or store them in a Ziploc bag and try again another day if you're getting frustrated. Now for our last mold. This is the one I bought off of Amazon, the one I assumed was going to be a fail because it felt cheap and flimsy all at the start of this video. Lo and behold, the chocolate released from the mold nice and smoothly. I was very surprised. I felt less stress trying to release it, it just kind of fell into my hand, which is a good thing. I would definitely use this over the other mold. That's not to say that the other one isn't good. It's still a great mold, and if I had coated it a little bit more on the inside, it probably wouldn't have been an issue and my heart would not have broke. Basically user error if I'm being honest. I have read comments about heart molds and how people are unhappy with theirs because the brace on the back of the mold can sometimes leave impressions on the chocolate heart. I just wanted to show you that that was not the case for either of these 2 molds. I figured I'd mention it just in case you were worried about that or if this has been a problem for you in the past. Next, we're going to clean up our edges. They look pretty messy and pretty rough. Some people like to use a regular dinner plate that's been heated up in the microwave. I personally like to use a small skillet. I mainly got this one for scrambling single-serving eggs for breakfast. I like to heat mine up on the stovetop. I do rest my hand on the inside of the pan while it's heating up on the stove, and once it starts to get warm, I know my pan is ready. It does not take much heat to clean up the edges. You don't need your pan to be blazing hot. Take your cocoa bomb and gently place it on the surface of your pan and give it a little twist. Look how clean that looks. Nice and sharp looking. Now place your cocoa bomb face down on some parchment paper. The part you just melted, yes, put that on parchment paper. I'll explain why. This is why you want your cocoa bomb to be face down on some parchment paper. I left this one facing up so you can see it doesn't have a clean look at all. It's bumpy with drips and it's kind of lumpy. This will make it harder and more frustrating when it comes time to seal up your cocoa bombs. This is what you want, a nice clean flat edge. So, place your cleaned up wet edges down on some parchment paper to dry. Now comes the easy part, filling your cocoa bombs. If I'm making a bunch of these for the holidays, I like to go with this giant container of Swiss Miss. I think I bought this at Sam's Club, and as you can see, I've gone through a ton over the recent holidays. I get asked this all the time, how much cocoa mix do you put inside your cocoa bombs? Most cocoa containers will tell you on the back of your box how many tablespoons they recommend for whatever amounts of fluids they suggest. This container suggested about 3 tablespoons of cocoa mix, so this is what 3 tablespoons of cocoa looks like in the shell. There's no rule that says you can't add more or less, make it how you would like to have it. Add in your marshmallows. Some people like to add in sprinkles to jazz up the inside. That seems like a little bit of a waste to me. I've tried it once before and it just, I mean, they sink to the bottom. They certainly don't float. You're better off saving your sprinkles for decorating the outside rather than the inside. Once you're ready to seal up your cocoa bombs, heat up your pan again and take a shell and melt the edges just enough to help glue down that top shell to the filled cocoa shell. As you can see here, my shell was really thin and the heat of my finger went right through it. Not to worry, this can be fixed, so if this happens to you, don't get discouraged. Once you've placed your shells together, run your finger along the seam to help seal everything in. Now it's time to decorate and fix that hole. If you have a cake pan, turn it over. This is a neat little trick to help you hold your cocoa bomb in place. Check your seams out. If you have a slight hole or a section where your chocolate didn't seal up properly, place it facing up like this. Grab the bowl you used earlier. Also grab any shells that broke and or didn't make the cut and add it to your bowl. We're gonna remelt this in the microwave just like before, but not the spoon, don't melt that. Oh, there we go. Since we're gonna drizzle this onto our cocoa bombs, make sure it's not extremely hot. Let it cool down a bit. We don't want that to melt our bomb. I like using a piping bag whenever I drizzle chocolate onto my bombs. It's consistent in size and gives a clean look in my opinion. You could probably use a Ziploc bag assuming it's a good sturdy brand. Snip off just a little. You could always take off more. Also, test out your drizzle line before you apply it to your mold just in case it's not the size that you want. Take your chocolate and drizzle it back and forth over your seam and any holes that you think may need some patching up. Since your chocolate drizzle is so thin, it will set pretty quickly, so I suggest adding on your decorations while it's still wet. Yes, that hole is still visible. The drizzle and sprinkles have covered up most of it, but we're not done yet. I'm going to add on a second color. I've melted some white candies here, and I'm just going to cover that sprinkle layer with another drizzle layer. Now it's covered. I also have these heart sprinkles, which I should have sprinkled with my hand instead of trying to sprinkle them out of the container. This is clearly way too much. Here, I'll show you a sprinkled version using my hand. I think this is better anyway. It's more controlled and these heart sprinkles are pretty chunky. For these faceted hearts, we're just going to do a simple, clean drizzle using both colors. Here is the finished product. I think these look great. I have this heart in a silver lined cupcake liner with the silver looking center, and this other one is in a gold liner with a white paper center. I think I like the gold cupcake liner better. I had a ton of fun making these for you today. I hope you learned a lot and have the confidence to tackle these on your own when you're ready. I will leave a link to all of the tools and products I use down in the description box below for those of you that are interested. Unfortunately, the Hobby Lobby mold set is brand specific to that store, so it is not findable on Amazon to my knowledge. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.